Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first week of Drawing 1, ART204. My name is Kim Grable, and I am your instructor. And by the way, do you know who this guy is? He looks pretty familiar. He should look very familiar. This is Leonardo da Vinci. And he was quite the illustrator, quite the pencil drawer, if you will. I try each week to give you some little information, minutia about drawing and drawing tools. And he's the first person I introduced to you because he's probably the master of drawing all these years. He's retained that title. So that's Da Vinci. The challenge that you're going to face, the biggest challenge of a beginning drawing class like this, is not just observing and drawing objects, but mastering the tools. So I want to go through just very quickly some of the tools that you'll be using. And by the way, after this initial week one lecture, then I do live demonstration lectures. So this is the only one that I won't be doing live drawings as I show you things. Since this is primarily a tools of the trade drawing class, this first part anyway, these are the pencils you'll be using. You can use the Statler Mars if you like. You can use, I think Lumograph has sets. That's what I use Statler Mars all the time. That's what I've used for 112 years, and they've never changed. Now, when I tell you this, please hear it um, correctly. I don't really want you to go out and buy this big set of drawing pencils. Not yet. I'll tell you what you need. But you're students, and I know you don't have like money to burn, especially on a lot of drawing equipment. So I'll tell you what you absolutely have to have and things that you can acquire later or that you can completely skip. You will need these pencils, but I would first grab an HB, an H, and the indicators, the H and the HB, the B, and maybe a 2 to 4B. Those indicate the softness or hardness of the leads, and that's all they mean. So just grab a few and grab a couple of H's and maybe 2 or 3 B's to get you started with your week one worksheet. Also, you're going to be experimenting with your with your pencils and with your charcoal. And this is called mark making. Now, this is also called mark making, where you take each different pencil and you scribble with it, and it'll show you the depth of color, color meaning the darkness or the lightness, and the hardness. So you'll know after a while that these are very soft leaded pencils, and they are great for really dark, saturated areas. The B and the HB, are wonderful for soft, very um, I guess you could say, very shadowed areas that you can work yourself. You can use your finger, or you can use something called a paper stump that we'll be talking about later. This, after you get into the H's, and you can see 4H's are really hard lead, and it's difficult not to draw lines with an H. especially a 4H. This is the hardest pencil that I believe there is right now. And you really don't need this. You need one of these. The F is hard to find. It's a wonderful lead, but it's difficult to find. So stick with an HB, a B, maybe a 2. Grab these guys and maybe this guy, and you're in pretty good shape until we get into more detailed drawing. You also have things to consider that are called charcoal vines. And do you see these little thin areas of dark here? These are actually charcoal pressed into a vine or a cylinder. And the cylinders vary in width, as you can see. And there are some that are flattened and they make an edge. You really don't know what to buy yet with this because you don't know how charcoal's going to behave with you. So you can grab a couple of charcoal pencils. Uh, you might I think the cheapest thing to buy are these vines, and they usually come like in a package of 2 or 3, and you can get them sometimes less than $1. Do whatever you like as far as grabbing some charcoal. If you like charcoal pencils, then go back and get you a few more. Their their lead or their charcoal is sort of the same as the graphite pencils, except these tend to be very, very soft. Now you can do some wonderful effects with them, and that's what you'll start with. But at this point, I would just grab 1 or 2 of these and maybe one pencil and a couple of these vines and just see how they do, see how you like them. This is called a kneaded eraser. This thing is a piece of plastic, basically soft and pliable, and you can pull it and stretch it, throw it against the wall. You can do all kinds of things with it. And the neat thing about it is you can pull it apart. You can take tiny little sections of it and make it into a point. You can do all kinds of things with it. So it's very, I guess you'd say it's very versatile. You will also need paper stumps. Now, paper stumps are nothing more than rolled up paper. And you can even see the layers of paper just kind of rolled into a fine point. They don't have any color at all in them until you add the color. And when I say color, I'm talking about either graphite or charcoal. But this is a great way to shade and to take some of the strokes that you've made, like on this area, and see, this hasn't been shaded yet with a paper stump. This has, and it's a way of smoothing an area. You'll use these a lot, and the way you continue to use them, they will wear out and the tips will get all worn down. You can just take an X-Acto blade and cut it back into a pencil point like that. You don't have to use it like that. You can just cut the top off. You can do anything you like as long as it suits your needs. When you're using paper stump, always have a kneaded eraser nearby, and usually a piece of cloth or maybe even paper towels to clean up yourself and your hands and the page. If you're left-handed, you're going to either have to turn your page where your hand won't drag across what you've already drawn. I'm left-handed, so I know exactly what this entails. The easiest way to take care of that is to get yourself a white piece of paper with nothing on it and cover your work. If you need to, for instance, go over here and do some work and you've done all of this, just put that white piece of paper over this. And you can even tape it down if you want, tape it off the surface of the drawing, and it'll stay put. And it'll keep you from smearing charcoals. Charcoal's really easy to smear and make a mess, so be aware of that. So when you're using a paper stump, again, it's blending, softening, and it's giving things a more realistic look. You can also pick up color from a piece of charcoal, color the charcoal, and then grab the paper stump and just drag it back and forth. And what it'll do is pick up some of this charcoal darkness. This is a good eraser to have. It's a really clean eraser. And it's a plastic eraser, but it's a hard plastic eraser, unlike the kneaded eraser. And you can really do some nice things with edges with these. Um, Sometimes you actually use these kneaded rubber and kneaded erasers and just these plastic erasers to create highlights or points. If you take enough graphite away from an object, it becomes the color of the paper below. Um, so you have to be careful that you don't smear, but you can create some nice effects with this. It tends to be a dirty eraser. I don't mean it, it does bad things and runs around in bars and stuff. I mean, it tends to leave bits of plastic when you erase. So some artists use brushes, those flat brushes. They're kind of expensive. I would just frankly blow those, just literally just blow those little bits of plastic away or brush them away with the side of your hand. Just be very careful and very gentle. You'll also have a pink pearl eraser, and you know what these are. You've used them ever since you were a child, probably. The neat thing about these is they are not plastic, but they are um, latex free, or um, they're a softer eraser. You can also take an X-Acto and make cuts. Like I always cut mine up into pieces and sharpened areas so I can get really nice edge details. Um, so keep that in mind as well. Again, here's your kneaded eraser. This is a mechanical pencil, and you can use a mechanical pencil in here if you like. Um, the way you deal with a mechanical pencil, I use them um, when I can, but a lot of times it's easier and faster just to grab a pencil and sharpen it with your X-Acto knife and go for it. If you use a lead mechanical pencil, then you need a lead pointer. These are not that expensive, but basically how it works is you put the mechanical pencil with the lead into this little receptacle here and spin it, and it just creates a nice sharp point for you. They're cleaner and easier to use in a lot of ways than pencils, regular graphite, and of course charcoal. And this is how you load them. I have several that I just keep different sizes. You don't have to do that. These are not, you don't have to have some kind of mechanical engineering degree to figure these out. If you're done, for instance, with an HB lead, you just take out the piece of lead that you've been using, the HB, put it back in your little container, and grab, say, a 3B and just load it back in. This is what the eraser looks like. in a mechanical pencil. And most mechanical pencils have the plastic eraser, that white eraser, just so you'll know. You will have, as one of your drawing surfaces, a Canson Bristol paper or Bristol board um, tablet, essentially. White Bristol board, clean white, bright surface, no texture. It's very smooth. We'll get into using this in a few weeks. At the beginning of your drawing, you'll be using newsprint. Newsprint is very inexpensive paper. It has a rough surface. It's newsprint. It's what the daily paper is printed on. But it does some nice things with both charcoal and with graphite pencil. So you'll definitely get one of these. Okay, now I'm going to go through 10 drawing techniques that you need to keep in mind and try throughout this course, okay? Think of the pencil as charcoal in a wooden sheath, because that's what it is. And the first step to master a pencil is know how to hold it correctly. Forget about, you know, early primary school when they had the big pencils and you had to hold them a certain way to write your letters. You're not writing letters anymore. So you're going to be using the side of these pencils a lot, and you can see why. It gives you a very definitive, different look to your to the strokes on as you draw. Also consider the lines that you make. The lines will really affect the look and feel of your entire drawing. Remember, you never really see lines in nature or in reality. You see differentiations in colors and in black and white. And this will become very important in just a little while. I'll show you what it means to have a light source and a shadow. Start with an underdrawing. I always do. Usually, an underdrawing takes about a minute or two, and all you're doing is kind of sketching out where things are going to be. You're going to keep your opacity really low, just enough where you can see it. Make sure these underdrawings are these quick little sketches of where you see things. Make sure they're very, very translucent. They're not hard, like outlines. You do need like a 2H to ensure those lines are very, very light and easy to erase, because you don't want them there after you begin to do your developed drawing. Of course, you know that pencils will smudge. So if you're right-handed, work left to right, and lefties know probably by now with everything else they have to do, move right to left if you can. Now, left-handed people are taught to write and read just like right-handed people. So they have the ability, a lot of them, to go from left to right or right to left. Um, do whatever feels natural to you and just get yourself a piece of paper, regardless of what size you start on, to keep smears from happening. Always vary your line thickness, and it will look more detailed and more reality-like. If you keep your lines at a consistent thickness throughout the detailed drawing, it's going to get boring. It's going to be not interesting to look at. So watch your lines and know how to control your lines. Because again, lines are not present when you draw objects in a simple pencil drawing, for instance. Um, when your work becomes more and more detailed, you really need to work on those lines and be aware of what you're doing. It's really easy to kind of get caught up in a section of your drawing. And it sometimes tends um, to look kind of strange if you stay right in one section. So regularly step back, move away from your pad of paper, whichever one you're using. Um, be aware of how the entire drawing looks. If you're working in sections, be sure again, back up and look at it. Now, if you need a straight line and you don't have the control to freehand a straight line, then grab any kind of straight edge you want. And I would not be fancy about it. I would not go buy anything to make a straight edge. A piece of cardboard, an envelope side, um, even a little small plastic ruler will help you. Now, don't use it for everything. But if you have a certain area that really needs a straight line, absolutely use a ruler. That's what they're for. Start very lightly, okay, and build your strokes. You know, maybe you start with a 2H with your kind of underdrawing, and then you build with, say, an H. And then there's an area of shadow. So you begin to start building with a softer pencil because you know you can use that pencil stump or paper stump with that to really soften that area. Mix light and dark lines together. And I'll show you this in just a second. This is very important. Clean up after yourself. A lot of students that I have do these wonderful, beautiful drawings, and they don't come back when they're done with usually a kneaded eraser will clean up everything so nicely. But they forget to do that, or they're in a hurry, and it kind of mars the appearance of a really beautifully done drawing. So clean up, and I do clean up throughout the process of drawing. And then I make a final sweep at the end just to make sure I didn't miss anything. And then I usually ask at least one or two people and say, do you see something like fingerprint or anything? And they will definitely tell you. um, check and recheck. This is important. Don't guess at your details. Don't guess if it's feels right or not. If things are symmetrical and look right, uh, then put down your stronger and harder lines. Now, one way, actually two ways of really checking your work is get in front of a mirror, take your work and put it in a mirror where you can stand behind it and look at it. And the other way to do it is turn it upside down in a mirror and look at it. And that will really show you if something's off. You can also do this through the lens of a camera. You don't have to photograph it, but you can use that lens as a way to look to see if anything is off. If it doesn't feel right, then back up and look at it, put it in a mirror. You can take it, say, to one side of the room and go all the way to the other side. But as you're moving to the other side of the room, don't look at the painting. Don't back up and look at it. Turn your back, walk all the way away, and then turn around. And you'll see if something's off immediately. Know when to stop. This is the hardest thing you'll ever do. I've drawn since 1845, and I still overwork my work. Um, and don't sign your work until you're completely done. Um, Really, the only time I sign anything is if I'm doing lithographs or prints, because those I make in a series and the signing makes a big difference. If you want to sign your work, that's perfectly fine. You can also sign and date it on the back of your work. Uh, just make sure before you sweep in with a signature that you're done, that you're truly finished, and don't overwork your piece. You literally, when you think you're done, you literally have to make a conscious decision to say, I'm done, and put away everything and be done. It's hard to do. You'll find out. Now, your first worksheet, let me go through that just kind of really quickly for you so you'll know what you're doing. The first part of the worksheet is called mark making, and it's real similar to what I showed you earlier. Now, when you're in the worksheet, you see this right here? This is a placeholder and nothing else. So as soon as you start working, click on this and ditch it, get rid of it, erase it, delete it, whatever. And that way you have a nice surface to place your art into. Okay? And you can place your art any way you want. You can take like a photo with your camera, with your camera phone of your work, and then just add it here as as a digital uh, addition. Or you can scan your image and place it. It doesn't matter, but get rid of these placeholders because they're very distracting. So make marks, but also use your pencils, your charcoal, and your erasers to make those marks. There's no right way to do that. Um, okay, so remember the red image is there to help you place your image. These are FPOs for placement only. So ditch them, get rid of them when you're ready to put your work in. Okay, all right. And again, mark making is just you're playing around with patterns, marks, dots, lines, loose text, gestural drawings, controlled and neat, any way you want. But all you're doing is practicing with your materials. The second exercise on the worksheet is to make two drawings of a simple everyday object. Uh, and I would stress the word simple because you're just getting started. Here are two drawings of teapots that I did. And this one is drawn with charcoal. You can see you can get some really nice tonal reality, like with the hot areas or the white areas. That's that's not white uh, pencil. That is allowing the white of the paper to show through by using the eraser. Always, when you're using charcoal, use it in the direction of the shape that you're adding color to. It makes a big difference. With graphite pencils, sometimes you have to have an outline to kind of get your bearings of where everything is. But once I do outlines like this, I go back with a kneaded eraser and soften these. This is a natural line created by shadow and light. This is not. This is just a hard line that I use to create the shape of the teapot here as well. So I'm going to go back and, clean up some of this and get rid of these lines for sure. I may not clean this up because it's a nice textured background and I like it. It's really up to you how you build your work. Now, the third drawing for your worksheet is to draw a still life of common shapes. And again, keep it really simple, like the cube, the sphere, the cylinder, the rectangle. Make these into everyday objects or grab a few that have these basic shapes. Now, the key to a still life is choosing 3 or more common, easy to draw objects. Go easy on yourself. You're not going to be building a really detailed glass on marble on wood like this particular artist has done. This is super, super detailed. But the reason I have it here is I want to show you how a still life is laid out. This is turned over and it sort of covers part of this glass. And then this glass or glass bottle is a little further away from the other two. And it sort of has its own little shadowing in place here. But there's 3, and then there's some side pieces that are maybe ice cubes even. Um, it has to be a group of objects laid together like this. You see what I'm saying? Not a box here and then another box over here and then maybe a box floating in the sky. No, that's not a still life. That's 3 boxes. You want to create a still life. Now, when you're working with a still life, your light source is keenly important. Remember that light wraps around objects, creating variations in your shadows. So when you're first drawing, say, like a sphere, rough it out like this, you know, figure out where your center point is, and then you might even indicate the darkest area of this sphere, which is right in here. You see that? Um, and then you continue to, like, you take the center part away, um, and you erase things you don't need, essentially. So I hope that helps a little bit. Let me show you just a couple more about light sources. Always have in mind where your light source is, even if you have to draw it. You can draw it very lightly, like in the corner, and then you can erase it later. But this is how the light spills onto this piece. Okay? There's something called the lost edge. And when you create a drawing like a sphere, the edge of that sphere, the edge that you'll see is the difference between the background and the foreground of shadow, and then the background. The darkest area is the lost edge. You never really see a hard edge right there. Also, notice that since the light wraps around the object, you have a little area of lightness, and then the dark kind of comes in. So it's really kind of off center. Another way of looking at it is right here. You might want to hang on to this, maybe make a copy or something, because it really gives you a great look at how the shadows play out, what the lost edge looks like, and then all the different sort of gray areas. And then this is another common shape, still life. Okay. You have objects that are together, grouped together. You have usually a table. You don't have to be this detailed about it. And then you have a background. But remember, your items are grouped, they're not singularly on different pages. And then I'm going to just show you a couple of samples of my drawings, just from different jobs and that kind of thing. 2, 3, and that was for a commercial. So that is all I have for you for the very first week. Again, take your time. Don't worry about having every single uh, supply on the supply list. Grab the newsprint, the pencils, all the erasers, and you're ready to start. So I hope it goes well, and we will talk again very soon. Thank you.